Welcome back to Frustrated Book Purists. Frustrated Book Purists is a series that reviews TV and film adaptations of books. As a reminder, these are just our personal opinions and not the views of the library. We are here strictly to let you know about how the adaptation compares to the book. This month we will be discussing the extremely popular Netflix adaptation to the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn, written between 2000 and 2006. This season in particular follows the first book of the series, The Duke and I. The Bridgerton series follows the Bridgerton family, Mother Violet and her 8 adult, or mostly adult, children, who are famously named alphabetically: Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, and then the littler of the 8 children, Gregory and Hyacinth. Now, the death of Edmund had a large effect on the family. Anthony and Violet have led the family very well, and it is now the eldest daughter, Daphne's, 3rd season and she has had 4 proposals. Simon Basset, Duke of Hastings, has returned to London after the death of his father. Due to Simon's father being emotionally distant and abusive during Simon's childhood, they did not have a good relationship. Simon's mother, Pat, died while birthing Simon, and Simon's father was more caring about the family line and the lineage of the dukedom than he was his son. Now, Simon has vowed to himself never to carry on that family line due to that abuse and lack of love. As a further disclaimer, I will state that I am being extremely nitpicky with this comparison, and it will be quite lengthy. The Bridgerton series is one that is exceptionally close to this reader's heart. I have been looking forward to this adaptation since it was announced years ago. As for the book series and author Julia Quinn, I have been reading her for 20 years. So Julia Quinn is a favorite author of mine, and the series had a huge impact on my own reading habits and my expectations when I read a romance novel. It was one of the very first romance novels that I read, and because of such a high quality of writing and the love and the witty conversation and the back and forth between siblings, it set a tone and a bar for romance books and even like just fiction as a whole for me. So this comparison is also a study in loving a book series, appreciating the changes and ways the adaptation changes the events in a book somewhat appropriately. Set in 1813, Lady Whistledown's society papers have been published for only 3 months and have made quite the splash in society. Scandalous in her use of full names, the information that is reported, and her witty and scathing insult. Julia Quinn's use of the Whistledown papers to share and disseminate information is brilliant, and it gives readers and viewers an interesting character and mystery to solve and look into the whole of society versus the individual points of view of the main characters. More on this later, however. The story of Daphne and Simon is not greatly changed between the novel and the adaptation. Daphne and Simon's story at the root is still one of a man that is uninterested in participating in the whirl of London society and a girl who is frustrated with the role of women. Simon has overcome huge obstacles during his youth and still deals with his father's abusiveness. His father's abusiveness stems from the fact that Simon spent much of his early years silent. In fear of his father, developed a stutter. His father labels him an idiot, a half-wit, and after years of wanting a son to carry on the family lineage, Simon is a disappointment. Simon does not know of loving families and siblings that like each other. The Bridgertons confuse him. He doesn't understand the closeness, the love, and the relationships between each of the siblings and each of the siblings with their mother, Violet. But at the same time, becomes drawn to them because that is something he is missing in his life. Daphne is still a young debutante that is naive and left in the dark when it comes to more intimate matters of marriage. She longs for a marriage like the one her parents had, with a partner that loves and supports, with hopefully many children to pass that love and support onto. A difference between the novel and the adaptation is that Daphne is starting her third season. She has been labeled the friend. In modern terms, she's been friend-zoned. Potential suitors do not see her as a prospective bride and wife, a woman to be desired. She has had 4 proposals, which Anthony has declined, and most recently, Nigel Burbrook, who is not quite giving up. However, this is handled very differently in the novels. Anthony speaks with Daphne about her choices. It is as much her decision as it is his. Once more about this later. Daphne is being pressured by Nigel to say yes to his proposal when he goes a bit too far. Daphne feels uncomfortable and punches him. Now, what ensues in the novel is a hilarious scene where Simon makes himself known and helps Daphne plan her escape from the hall with 2 bachelors, having just punched one, and scandal. It is during Nigel's unconscious muttering of Daphne, and he realizes when he looks at her that this is just not another Daphne, this is Daphne Bridgerton, his closest, best friend's sister. Now, up to this point, he had noticed a very attractive, beautiful even, and there was a certain level of attraction there. So the entire scene is quite hilarious and telling of their forthcoming friendship and later romance. They are both quick-witted, intelligent, and a bit sly. It's the beginning of a friendship that sets in motion a breathtaking and magnificent love story. I won't repeat the particulars of that love story, as the adaptation does portray the events of the novel admirably. They were caught in the garden, Anthony and Simon duel. I will mention, however, a few minor differences. These are not marks against the adaptation, as most keep with the overall mood and tone of the novel, but are acknowledgments of the differences. The first is that it is Daphne who approaches Simon with the plan. In the novel, I love that it was Daphne who approaches the idea. She does it logically, counting off the reasons to Simon why it would benefit them both. It is, however, bold and daring of a female to approach a male with this proposition. And that is exactly the type of females that Julia Quinn writes. Women that take their own futures into their hand. Another very small difference is that it is shortly into the ruse that Anthony becomes aware of. He has to become aware of, because he is questioning why they are getting closer. This is played out a little bit differently, more of the protective older brother in the adaptation, but he does become aware of that ruse. And a bit more of a disappointment was the fact that the adaptation didn't cover Simon's stutter more as an adult. They lay the groundwork very well with his childhood. But as an adult, they don't portray his reluctance and his shame with that stutter. He doesn't even stutter that much in the delivery of his lines. Regé-Jean Page definitely portrays Simon's man of few words, quickly speaking traits exceptionally well. And I mean, come on, ladies. Regé-Jean Page is beautiful. He is the perfect Simon. This is a letdown, particularly in discussing the shame of the stutter with Daphne. It is at the end of the story, with Simon's feeling shameful of his stutter and Daphne incensed about Simon's lies about his ability to have children, using her naivety against her, that felt rushed and a bit unclear. I felt that had I not read The Duke and I numerous times, the depth of Simon's shame would have been lost on the viewers. Any adaptation has to make changes. There are certain things that cannot be correctly portrayed on screen, taken directly off the page. To readers, it is how well these transitions happen and how well the changes fit into the written story on whether the adaptation is acceptable. Bridgerton offers an opportunity to share a sort of behind-the-scene look into the lives of the large cast of characters. There is so much source material, and being familiar with the entire series, it was interesting to see how they brought the other characters to life, weaving in Easter eggs of future stories and snippets of a character's traits into a storyline. However, that doesn't mean there were things that weren't changed, and there were a few that pulled me out of the viewing because I knew they were so erroneously wrong. The first of these was Anthony Bridgerton, Viscount Bridgerton, the eldest son. In the novel, Anthony takes his responsibility as head of the family quite seriously. He was young when stepping into the role, and although has a difficult time periodically knowing when to be father or brother to his siblings, is not overbearing, insensitive, or uncaring. He has worked with Violet, taken her counsel, and has a good relationship with his mother. All the kids do. It's wonderful. In the very first episode, viewers see two erroneous characterizations of Anthony. The first is how overbearing and uncaring he is of Daphne and selecting her future partner. I mentioned this in a previous segment, but he discusses the prospective suitors that have approached him with proposals with Daphne. He gives her first option to say no. He certainly doesn't interfere during the selection process in telling her no to anyone, with the exception of Simon as his friend, and because he has a bit of a reputation. Before she has the opportunity to meet and speak with the gentleman. And he certainly wouldn't discount his mother in the way that he does in the adaptation. His attitude is very in keeping with society and the view of men during the early 19th century and the Regency era. The second erroneous change is that Anthony is counting on Benedict and Colin to marry and have children. Although Anthony has his own feelings on marriage, which are covered in The Viscount Who Loved Me, he knows his responsibility to the viscountcy. He knows that he will marry and have an heir. He does not simply foist that responsibility on his brothers and would feel wrong in doing so. Is Colin Bridgerton, third son and consummate traveler. Colin is quite young in The Duke and I. He is probably about 22 years old. He has finished his schooling and in the novel is just back from a year on the continent. Colin is the fun-loving, pranking, extrovert brother and friend that everyone loves. He is easygoing and an endless flirt, a natural flirt. He has absolutely no intention of marrying at this age. Marriage to him is something years down the road. And although greatly sought after by matchmaking mamas, because, well, he is a Bridgerton, he is generally considered too young to marry. The fact that Colin is interested in one particular lady, let alone proposes marriage, is preposterous. The only thing on Colin's mind at this point is where he plans to travel next and his family. I'm returning to Simon and Daphne briefly with this next difference. I was going to discuss this with the minor differences at the end of the last segment, but it was too large of a difference to discuss at that point. At the end of the last episode, we see the birth of Simon and Daphne's first child, a boy that they will bless with an A name, continuing the Bridgerton tradition. However, in the novel epilogue, it skips to 1817, 4 years after Simon and Daphne have been married, with the birth of their fourth child. Now, this fourth child is their first boy, David, after 3 daughters, Amelia, Belinda, and Caroline. It wasn't important to Simon to have a boy first. After overcoming his fears, falling in love with Daphne, being uncertain about fatherhood, It was just having a child to love and learn to grow into fatherhood. By the time their son David comes along, he is a completely different man, ready to be a father to a son, to love and show him how to be a man with gentleness, support, laughter, and love. Louise Bridgerton, fifth child and second daughter. I love Eloise. All readers love Eloise. Her character is always so curious, pointed, and oftentimes the bane of her siblings' existence. She is forthright and blunt, always seeking information and always in the know of gossip. Her friendship with Penelope is delightful and charming, and everything that a friendship between two bright, intelligent women should be. So what was wrong with her part in the adaptation? Nothing, except her single-minded determination to uncover Lady Whistledown. Even when this becomes more of an actual plot point in book 4, she is not this dogged. She's not even the sibling that uncovers Lady W's identity. Now, this wasn't such a huge thing to add, but it will lead into the most grievous error, the unveiling of who Lady Whistledown is, to be discussed last. What do I say about the Featheringtons? This is probably one of the areas where the writers took the most liberties. Although the Bridgerton and Featherington families were close and taking a prominent part of the novels, it is also the easiest area to make changes in the adaptations. The largest changes were that they were entitled in the adaptation, being Lord and Lady Featherington, a barony versus just Mr. and Mrs. Featherington. There's also the noticeable missing Felicity Featherington, youngest daughter and best friend to Hyacinth Bridgerton. It is mentioned later in the series that Mr. Featherington has passed, although not under suspicious circumstances. So there were some possible liberties taken with this. And to tell you the truth, I can't remember if he's mentioned specifically in the first novel or not. He doesn't take a leading role. Besides the Featheringtons, the addition of the Royals in is another major difference. I'm including this because it is an addition to the book. I actually quite enjoyed the addition of the court presentation and Queen Charlotte. Court presentations started during the late 18th century and were the official notice that a young woman was at the acceptable age of marriage. Although this is not shown in any of the Bridgerton books, it is mentioned specifically along with the coming out of young girls, and whether they were being out for their season early or late is discussed in several books. In 1813, King George and Queen Charlotte were ruling. I only knew some basic information about King George, so I did some quick research. Charlotte was born in May 1744 in northern Germany. George III primarily chose her as his queen because she did not hold any interest in politics and policy. Although this changed slightly later in their marriage, she would indirectly influence politics and policy, particularly those that affected Germany. During their marriage, she gave birth to 15 children, 13 who survived into adulthood. By 1813, George is insane. Their oldest son was regent, and Charlotte acted as first lady. Charlotte found it extremely difficult to be around George, but continued to support him through his illness. In the years leading up to her death in November 1818, at the age of 74, she became increasingly unpopular with the people, even having demonstrations against her. And it is quoted that she found it unsettling after so many years of service. Knowing this, the portrayal of Charlotte seemed emotionally accurate as well as factual. Golda Rosheuvel plays Charlotte beautifully. When comparing the book and the adaptation, I rarely discuss the cast in any great length. But the cast of Bridgerton is perfection. They are all so perfectly perfect for their characters. Their portrayals are brilliant. They are brilliant actors and have so completely stepped into their role. It is like seeing the characters come off the page. And as a reader, you can't ask for more. The inclusivity is so seamless and makes sense. Historically, English society would be extremely white. But with the addition of Queen Charlotte, the writers have been able to include a little mentioned plot thread that allows people of color to be included into society. 2 lines explain it all. The first in episode 2 by Simon's father, and then that short little conversation between Simon and Lady Danbury explains it all. It doesn't have to be mentioned, and it fits. It's utterly brilliant, and I love that they did that. Even better, that there is the slight possibility that Charlotte was actually possibly biracial. Distantly, one of her forebears was Moorish, Portuguese Moorish, which would have been a person of color. So not only have they brought in that historical fact, it makes sense. I have saved this last difference for the end. It is the difference that I have the most issue with, and at heart changes the series so much. The reveal of Lady Whistledown's identity. If you're familiar with the story, you knew this one was coming. I know why. Not knowing if the series would be continued or not, but revealing this was... I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. Netflix, you had the perfect opportunity to end this scene without Lady Whistledown lowering her hood. Readers anticipated this reveal for 4 books. We underlined clues. We analyzed Whistledown articles, pieces of gossip heard, pieces of gossip shared. Who was around? Who was listening? Got shared with whom? Readers had 4 books of anticipation, hypotheses, and 3 awesome cliffhangers. The fact that they ended that and you know who Lady Whistledown is so disappointing, because we're going into seasons 2 and 3 and 4 you're not going to care as much. That what in the books, that was one of the things that was driving you to the next book over and over and over again. Like, is this the book where she's going to reveal her identity? How's it going to happen? And as a viewer, I know it's only revealed to us. It's not revealed to the characters, but that was part of the pleasure, is that it was revealed to us at the same time it was revealed to the characters. Easter eggs. For those who are familiar with the series, Marina Thompson, for example, is not a Featherington cousin, but a distant Bridgerton cousin. She is a part of Eloise's story, To Sir Philip with Love. In the books, her character is actually engaged to George Crane and marries Philip after George's death. He has gone and fight against Napoleon and has died in battle. Another is Anthony's mistress, Sienna Rosa. This is actually very cleverly added, as we learn in The Viscount Who Loved Me that she was his mistress about a year ago. What would have been during the time of The Duke and I was taking place. Then we have Benedict's artistic talents. His family is not aware until his book, An Offer from a Gentleman, that he was so talented, with different accomplishments mentioned throughout the later books. It is interesting because we get to see his budding talents and how he possibly cultivated those before we actually see the fruition of said talents. With Bridgerton, Julia Quinn wrote a historical romance that resonated when she wrote it 20 years ago and still resonates today and will continue in the future. It will continue to resonate because at its core, it is about a family that loves one another and grows in love. Strong females are foiled by men with weaknesses that, although difficult and reluctant to speak of, share their emotions. Both female and male characters are not afraid to voice their insecurities and work through their differences. Each of the couples, we see this as Simon and Daphne, and we'll see it in later seasons as well, hopefully, are friends with their spouses. They are their best friend. They have a passionate love for each other because they are so close, because of this emotional these shared emotions and the working through of their differences and their problems. Quinn writes the good and bad of families and relationships with truth and humor. Even though the book ends, the story doesn't. And we continue to see those characters grow and change. Quinn has created a story where you continue to care about it's that not couple. Just happily ever after. The couple continues to learn, experience, and change. Netflix Bridgerton doesn't change these facts. It may not be the perfect adaptation that fans of the series were longing for. They may leave characters out, add additional characters, or change their role in the story, include additional plots, reveal plots incredibly early. I will not forgive you for that whistle down reveal, but the story is there. The love is there. The familial bonds are there. The friendships are there. And when watching a Bridgerton adaptation, that's what matters. However, for me, this doesn't quite hit my Bridgerton love button. As much as I enjoyed the series, I can't quite fully get behind it. Now, Simon and Daphne were not my favorite couple. Duke and I were not my favorite book, but I still enjoyed the series. And there seemed to be some of the depth and understanding missing. The changes in Anthony Bridgerton's character bothered me, and the reveal of Lady Whistledown's identity really disappointed me. Despite these things, I did really enjoy the series. It had everything that I loved about the books. And the things that they changed, for the most part, made sense or fit into the story. I'll have to see how they continue with the series, but it's not like an, oh my goodness, this is amazing series for me. I can understand why it has garnered so much attention, particularly being released when it has. We're in the middle of a pandemic. This is exactly the type of story we wanted, that we needed at this time. Not quite there for me, but we'll see if they make any changes with season 2. The Viscount That Loved Me. Leave a comment below. What did you think? Did you enjoy this comparison? Did you agree with me? Did you think I am grossly misunderstanding something? Let me know.